It's all Brett's idea, really. I would say probably around 1998, Brett came to town. Was it 1998?
Yeah, 97.
97. Came to town with his guitar in hand and said, Mike, let's play a few tunes. And so we did. Eventually we got asked to play at different things, different events, and evolved into a coffee house, and before you know it, we were almost a band. And I remember at one time, Brett, I don't know if you remember, we played at this little event in the Stone Road Mall, and someone came up to us afterwards. I think we played 2 songs at this little thing, and someone came up and said, "Do you guys play in bars?" and wanted us to come and play in their nightclub. So that's when we had the idea that maybe we should take it more seriously.
When we got the offer to play in bars, that's when we thought, now we need to take it seriously. And we had just finished reading a lot of literature on the early history of the Baha'i Faith, which is really what stimulated the first CD. It was really inspiring for us, and so that's sort of when that happened. And then we got serious about 2002.
We started writing a bit of music together, and it seemed like it was going somewhere. And so we decided to meet with our very good friend Jack Lenz and ask for some advice. And I went back home and we really dug in deep, and we started really, I think, writing music from the heart at that point.
Yeah, so the band today is, it's composed of, there's 7 musicians in total, and we're really honored, actually, Mike and I, to be working with these people. They're just phenomenal musicians. So we have Emily Dragoman. A lot of people talk about the music having sort of haunting vocals and beautiful melodies, and Emily is really instrumental in that. She's just got an angelic voice and a beautiful presence on stage.
I remember when we first came down, we had a selection of 5 songs that we wanted to play for Jack Lenz, the producer. We brought a song called Divine Tapestry, which features Emily. And I remember that was the first song we played for Jack Lenz. And I remember when the song ended, he looked at us and he said, "Who is that voice?" And we told him, he said, "That's $1 million voice." And at that point we knew that the decision had been made.
A guy named Chris Church, who does all the violin stuff for us. And we met Chris because actually he plays for Jesse Cook. And we went down to London to watch a concert once. We saw him on stage and he plays the violin, and we were just blown away with him. And so at that point we were working on the CD Under the Low Tree, and we needed some violin tracks, and we thought this guy would be perfect for it. So we called him up and he came to the studio and he did a few takes for a song called The Austrian, and Mike and I were just blown away. A guy named Aaron Ferreira, who does all the drums and rhythm and percussion, great sort of backbone of the band. Asher Lenz, of course, he got on board as well, and he's a real asset to the band. A great piano player, and he's also involved in the production of the music itself, so he does a lot in that way. And then Glenn Olive, who plays bass for us, and again, he's been with us for a couple of years, and he and Aaron have been friends for years. So that's sort of like when we go to a gig and we bring the band, that's the band. Great group of people. So the inspiration for the music really stems from the early history of the Baha'i Faith. Mike and I are both Baha'is. And there's a lot of documented literature about what happened at the beginning of the Baha'i Faith. This is between about 1820 and 1860, or 1880, I guess, the period that we've covered in our music. When you read these stories, like, you're just looking at heroes and heroines that have gone through tremendous suffering and oppression for what they believe in. And it was just remarkable reading these books. There's a book called The Dawnbreakers that I read, and after that I said to Mike, we got to write about these people. This is just phenomenal stuff.
People often ask us, is it religious? I guess that's a matter of interpretation, but to me it's stories about people with incredible character. People that any of us would look up to. It doesn't matter what religion we belong to. So I wouldn't say it's religious per se, in a traditional sense.
The bulk of it is just narratives, stories. So, yeah, I mean, it's spiritual. And for Baha'is, Baha'is might find it religious because it's about their religion, it's about their history. But I think for us, it's more telling stories, and it has definitely a spiritual component to it.
It's funny, people often ask me what type of music. It's so hard. There's so many types of music out there. So I would say that it really ranges from folky kind of music. Some of our roots are Simon and Garfunkel, to a Peter Gabriel type of sound, a more world music sound.
Yeah, I think it's hard to describe, but it is a fusion of different genres of music for sure. You'll hear things like ouds and djembes, you'll hear woodwinds, dudukes, a lot of instruments that come from the Middle East.
People often ask me, how do you write that music? Like, where does it come from really? And for me, a lot of times the music, the actual instrumentation comes first. And I get a feeling about the music, a certain feeling stirs in me, and then I lay down the music. It might be on the piano, it might be on the guitar. And once I hear that music, then I have a feeling of what that story is about. And then I will read some of the stories that I know, that I'm aware of, and find the most appropriate one to suit that mood.
It's kind of interesting, working with Mike. I mean, we definitely have common ground when it comes to the kind of music we like. And then we also have different influences, like we've grown up in slightly different epochs. Not too different, but... So he writes in a different style, perhaps, than I would write. And also now with modern technology and how everything's so divided up, like I have a studio in my house and Mike has one in his house, so I might do some preliminary recordings of a song that I like at my house, and Mike might do that at his house, and then we'll come together and we'll have a sort of pitch, what do you think about this and where can it go? And then at that point it becomes a very collaborative effort. To be honest, I don't know if we're recording this officially or not, but a while back I told Mike that our relationship is like water, in the sense that it just flows. Like we have a very flowing, easy relationship. So we tend to agree, first of all, on a lot of things, which is nice. I mean, music is a very personal thing, and it's hard to share that. It's hard to hear criticisms and stuff. If and when we have disagreed, and it's sort of like at an impasse, which is very rare, and it's about music, often we'll just put it out to friends and family. So it's kind of putting it out there and removing us from the picture. Yeah. I think for me anyways, a highlight would be pretty much after any show, because you're engaging with the audience, and that's what it's all about. I mean, getting emails from people in Africa who've heard our music, or Norway or New Zealand, in countries where they speak different languages, and having them say, your music has gone right to the bottom of my heart and touched me, like it's wild. We never could have imagined that from our little studio in Guelph, that we would have reached that. So that for me is like an epiphany moment.
Cool.
Well, I think for our part, like Mike and I are really committed to this process of writing music about these themes and these people, and it's such a rich history. So there's no sort of end in sight in terms of that. It'll go on at least for another 5 to 10 years, I would say. But besides that, probably touring with U2 and Sting. Right?
It's not bad. It wouldn't be a bad follow-up, actually.
Yeah.